Oh, I can kill it. Oh. Oh, that works. That works. Alright. Oh my god, 1,271 HP. Holy.
Here's Johnny.
Oh, hell no, man.
Let's go some more. Oh my god, look at that damage, dude. Alright. Oh, the door only has 175. Yeah, that's good.
Oh, wait, no, I don't. I lied.
Oh, no, it's okay. Oh, well, I killed him. Oh, that works. I forgot I had 16 strength. Holy shit.
Stacking strength.
Oh, we're gonna kill this guy next turn.
Do you have energy?
No, I mean, I can't play any cards.
I can make you draw.
You son of a bitch.
Yeah. Okay. Ooh, wait. I think I can kill him. Oh yeah, I can kill him. Boop. Oh.
Easy.
Oh, dude, that was so easy. Greetings, adventurers. This is Cosmo Warmforge, and today we're going over the complete card list, all 87 cards for the Ironclad class. This includes the commons, uncommons, and even the rares, of which there are plenty that are returning from the previous game, and plenty of new cards to talk about, my favorite of which is going to be Hellraiser, and that makes it so that whenever you draw a card containing the word strike, it is played automatically against a random enemy. This card by itself is build defining. There are some really awesome cards that I absolutely adore that they've added in Slay the Spire 2, and we're going to cover all that in just a moment. But to give you a background for myself, I'm someone that is obsessed with Slay the Spire. I've played Slay the Spire 1 at least for 200 hours, both unmodded and modded, made it up to Ascension 20 with the Ironclad, and I have made it up to Ascension 8 with the Ironclad in Slay the Spire 2. If you're not familiar with the Ironclad, this is the starter character for both games. You have a total of 80 health, which is more than all the other characters. And you also have the relic Burning Blood, which at the end of combat, you heal 6 HP. So the typical playstyle for Ironclad is typically going to be very slow and ramping up power over time, or sacrificing our HP as another resource so that we can get early game tempo. Now let's talk about the cards. I'm going to put up on screen for you guys a list for all of the cards from Slay the Spire 1 that have returned to Slay the Spire 2, and then also a list of all the cards that have not made the cut into Slay the Spire 2. And to give you the cliff notes, basically the cards that were cut out, a lot of them were either the status or curse related cards. Those have been completely axed out. That archetype does not exist anymore for the Ironclad, either to the dismay or to the delight of many of you. And then they've also kind of revamped some of the cards so that they do synergize more so with the other deck types. And one of the cards that I want to talk about is going to be, let me find it, it's going to be Inferno. So this used to be Combust, where at the end of your turn, you would lose an HP, and then you deal 6 damage to all enemies. Or it was either at the start or end of your turn. But now it is at the start of your turn, you lose 1 HP, and whenever you lose HP on your turn, you deal 6 damage to all enemies. So this can proc multiple times. This allows for better scaling of Inferno over the course of a full playthrough if you're going into a bloodletting deck or a bleed deck where you're dealing damage to yourself frequently. And I really like that change. If you buff it, it's 9 damage every single time it procs. That's honestly pretty significant. And then another card that they have changed, they've dropped the rarity of Bludgeon from rare down to uncommon. This makes it more easy to get, and there's a lot more cards that actually make Bludgeon a very useful implement, even though it costs so much energy. So that's one thing. Another card that they have changed is going to be Dark Embrace. It is now back to being a rare card. It does synergize very well with Corruption still, which we'll talk about later. That is an ancient rarity card, Corruption, so it's going to be much harder to get, but exhaust decks still do exist for the Ironclad. And then another card that they had tweaked is going to be basically what used to be Cleave is now Breakthrough, and they added on the effect where you lose 1 HP, so now this synergizes with Bleed decks, and the damage has been increased by 1, so now it's 9 damage and 13 damage when it's upgraded. Again, not a super big change, but a lot of the improvements they've made for the Ironclad are quite noticeable, at least when I was playing it. It does feel like it's more powerful than before, but of course the enemies are more powerful as well. All right, so let's go over the cards. I'm not going to spend too much time talking in great detail about every single little card. I want to really highlight some of the cards that I think are very impactful, cards that are worth upgrading, cards that actually function for specific deck archetypes so that it can help you with your deck building, help you with your overall progression when you're playing through Slay the Spire and taking on those Ascension ranks, because they are a lot harder in Slay the Spire 2. I think Ascension is much harder just because the mobs in general are way stronger than in Slay the Spire 1. So you get punished very heavily if you don't make a deck that's both versatile and powerful. And so going over the starting cards, we of course have Strike, Bash, and Defend. Obviously, if we upgrade these, you can see that nothing too crazy happens, but for our Bash, it goes from 2 vulnerable to 3 vulnerable, and that's a really big deal. You know, upgrading Bash is typically a priority unless you get other cards that you add to your deck that are a huge boost and are going to be better tempo than this upgrade. Now, as far as our other cards go, Anger is functionally the same as it was before. Same with Body Slam. Block decks are a bit different because we don't have Entrench anymore from Slay the Spire 1. So if you want to get massive, absurd amounts of block, there are specific items like the Vambrace that are going to double the block card that you play in the first combat. There's certain types of items and other sorts of things. And there is a consumable that will triple your block as well. And so there's ways to get super high blocks still in Slay the Spire 2. It's just a little bit harder, I would say. You have to work for it more. Breakthrough, we already talked about this. This is our typical AoE card. It gets 13 damage, an extra 4 damage when we upgrade it, and it's pretty good as an AoE option overall. You definitely need AoE in Slay the Spire. Even in the early acts, you really need AoE. Otherwise, you'll get punished hard. Headbutt, great card for searching into your discard pile and bringing it back into your draw pile. Iron Wave, very straightforward. Now, Molten Fist is a brand new card. It deals 10 damage for 1 energy, and it doubles the enemy's vulnerable. So if the enemy has 2 vulnerable from a Bash, and you hit them with a Molten Fist, they now have 4 vulnerable, meaning that this card inflicted 2 vulnerable, which is quite high value. It's actually much better value than a Bash. However, it is exhaust, and upgrading it only increases the damage. So it's not really an important card to upgrade, but this is a great card for decks that are going to synergize with vulnerable. There are quite a bit of cards that they've added that now synergize specifically with the vulnerable tag. So this is an archetype to think about and to play around. Pummel Strike, absolutely goated card. Always make sure to grab one of these as well as Shrug It Off. Just so fucking good. When you upgrade this, it draws 2 cards instead of 1. This card is ridiculous. We're just, for a common at least, it's just so stable. Setup Strike is also a new card. Upgrading this is going to increase the amount of strength that you get this turn. Just keep in mind, it's only for 1 turn. So if you're going to pop off hard, then Setup Strike can be very impactful. Otherwise, it might honestly not impact you too much. Sword Boomerang is the same as it was before. Thunderclap, this is going to be an AoE card that does 4 damage and applies 1 vulnerable to all enemies. I think this was actually in Slay the Spire 2, so yeah, it's functionally the same. It is really nice because it's AoE vulnerable. Twin Strike, pretty much functionally the same. I will say that for Twin Strike, it does actually get a little bit better just because in Slay the Spire 2, there is a lot of strike synergy. So there are ways to increase the damage on Twin Strike, either by enchanting it or through like a strike dummy or through other strike synergy that you can get from the Ironclad. And then all of a sudden, this becomes a very high damage dealer. Cinder, new card, deals 17 damage, exhausts the top card of your draw pile. Synergizes very well with draw exhaust decks. 22 damage, upgraded, is not bad, but honestly not that great. I don't really think that much of this card. Perfected Strike. This is an ode card that's returning, and upgrading it is going to allow us to deal 2 additional damage. Upgrading it goes up to 3 for all cards that contain Strike. This includes things like Twin Strike, like Pommel Strike, even Ashen Strike as well. And it is a lot better in Slay the Spire 2 than it was in Slay the Spire 1. Slay the Spire 1, this was super niche, very, very hard to play around. But I would say in Slay the Spire 2, I've actually been playing around Perfected Strike quite often. Whenever I get a Hellraiser, I'm searching for Perfected Strikes. And I'm getting a lot of value out of them because I get to play them for free. So this is actually so much better in Slay the Spire 2 than it was before. Do not sleep on Perfected Strike and Strike decks in general. Bloodletting, really good card. You are going to lose 3 HP and you're going to gain 2 energy, 3 energy if you upgrade this card. So it's definitely worth upgrading. And it is just incredibly huge for tempo. Combine Bloodletting with a Whirlwind to deal like a 6 energy Whirlwind. is crazy good AoE damage. It could even be really good normal damage if you enchant your Whirlwind, and we'll talk about it later. Armaments, this is a great card where if you upgrade it, then it gets to, instead of upgrading one card in your hand, it upgrades all cards in your hand. So I do like that upgrade effect. It can be a nice pick, especially if you have a lot of cards that are not upgraded. But yeah, still pretty much the same as it was before. Havoc, same as it was before. Good exhaust synergy. Shrug It Off, another staple card. Just good because it gives you block and it cycles itself. It draws one card. If you upgrade it, it gives you more block. It is just a very good staple because block is super important to have to consistently stay alive over the course of an Ascension run. You really got to prioritize your block, and Shrug It Off is just such a great block card. Tremble is a new card. This is going to apply 2 Vone for 1 or 3 Vone if you upgrade it. Honestly, I don't take this very often unless I'm absolutely desperate because we have another Vone card that actually gives block 2 as well for 1 cost, and I prefer that instead. True Grit, we have gain 7 block, exhaust 1 card at random. Functionally, the exact same as before. Bloodwall is a brand new card. You have to sacrifice 2 HP, but you can gain 16 block, and if you upgrade this, it is 20 block. That is quite substantial for 2 cost, especially if you have a Vambrace or the Pile's Pudding or whatever it's called that doubles your block. This can give you a massive amount of block that can just save you from a massive hit on the enemy. And 2 HP for 16 block, you know, technically just think of it like 14 block, you know, if the enemy was going to punch through your block, it's really just 14 block, but 14 block being upgraded to then 20 block, and this having the synergy with bleed decks is honestly worthwhile. It's a little bit situational, but it can be quite worthwhile. Bully is a brand new card. This is our first rare, and this is going to synergize with vulnerability decks. So it does 4 damage by itself and an additional 3 damage per the amount of vulnerable on the enemy. Now, you're going to probably have a hard time stacking vulnerable to the point where this is actually going to deal a lot of damage, but you could easily get this to deal, you know, 15, 20 damage for 0 cost is very high value, very good tempo, and honestly, not a bad card. Not a great card, but not a bad card. Spite, we have deal 6 damage if you lost HP this turn, then draw 1 card. And if we upgrade it, we get to deal 9 damage. Again, nothing too crazy, but nice because this can cycle if you have a Bloodletting deck. Whirlwind, the absolute GOAT. If you upgrade it, deals extra damage. You can enchant this. You can add on all sorts of bonuses. You can use Vigor or Akabeko to just deal like crazy damage off of Whirlwind. Have insane turns where you get huge tempo and just wipe the field of multiple enemies. Whirlwind's honestly the must for AoE. Ashen Strike, this is going to be a new card that synergizes specifically with exhaust decks. So if we have, for each card that we have in our exhaust pile, we deal an additional 3, and then if we upgrade 4 damage to the Ashen Strike. So if you're playing an exhaust deck, if you've exhausted like 10 cards, this is going to deal an extra 40 damage upgraded. So 1 cost for 46 damage. Pretty nutty, but again, nothing that's too insane compared to the other deck archetypes. It still is a very good complement, however. Dismantle is a card that synergizes with vulnerable decks. And whenever the enemy is vulnerable, this thing is going to hit twice. So if you enchant this, if you buff it up, if the enemy is vulnerable, like this thing is going to hit very hard, again for 1 cost, much harder than most of the other 1 cost cards. So nice to have for vulnerable decks. We've got Grapple, which deals 7 damage, and whenever you gain block this turn, you deal 5 damage to the enemy. If you upgrade it, it does increase the amount of damage dealt to the enemy whenever you gain block. So if you get this alongside a Juggernaut and you're able to get a ton of block over the course of 1 turn, I mean, you could do a lot of damage with this. Is it super scalable for Act 3? Not really, in my opinion, but it is nice to have. Hemokinesis, pretty much the same. They've nerfed it by 1 damage. I think because they made Bloodletting decks better and an actual archetype in and of itself, they nerfed the damage just by 1, so it's still pretty good. Pretty good pick, good source of damage if you need it, and losing 2 HP really isn't that bad on the Ironclad. Next up we have is Pillage, another new card. This deals 6 damage. We draw cards until you draw a non-attack card. And so this synergizes very well if you are running an attack deck and you want to load up on attacks. This is super good for a strike deck, by the way, because you could just end up drawing like 5 strikes until you finally draw a block and end up obliterating your opponent with Hellraiser. So Pillage honestly can be a very niche draw card that can give you quite a few draws if you use it right. Rampage, this is the same as it was before. It's going to deal an extra 9 damage every time you play it. Could be good if you have thinned your deck out significantly, but thinning your deck in Slay the Spire 2 is way harder than it was before, so honestly this card's really hard to use now. Fight Me is going to be a card that deals 5 damage twice, we get 2 strength, and the enemy gains 1 strength. If you upgrade it, it is an extra 1 strength. Honestly, for 2 costs, it's pretty hard to justify running most of the time. I feel like you lose too much tempo by running this card, and giving the enemy 1 strength is not that bad. If you're in co-op, it's pretty damn bad, so definitely don't recommend this in co-op. It's all right in single player. Unrelenting, another new card. This is a energy efficiency card. If we play it, we deal 12 damage, and the next attack we play costs 0. It doesn't matter if that attack costs 3 energy, 1 energy, 2 energy, it's going to cost nothing. So this goes really well with Bludgeon. You can play Unrelenting and then play Bludgeon for free. It is fantastic, or any of the other 3-cost attack cards for the Ironclad. And so you can get some really good tempo off of this card. I actually do like running it if I am running a Stampede deck. Uppercut. This is functionally the same as it was before. Upgrading it increases the amount of weak and vuln that it applies and is a valuable pick. Bludgeon, we've talked about it. It is now an uncommon card. It does 32 damage for 3 energy and 42 damage at 3 energy. If we upgrade it, it's a lot of damage, honestly, for 3. If we can find alternative means, such as what I just mentioned before, Unrelenting, or a card we're going to talk about in a bit called Stampede, you can basically play this card for free, and it is very high value if you can play it for free. Otherwise, it is a mid card. Howl from Beyond is going to be a new card that adds Exhaust Synergy. This is going to deal 16 damage to all enemies. At the start of your turn, you can play this card from the exhaust pile. So it's a very interesting wording on this, but yeah, basically, if you have exhausted this card, at the start of your turn, it's going to automatically play, and then it will be put into the discard pile. So it's not going to trigger again, but you can at least get 1 instance of 16 damage to all enemies if you can trigger this. It's pretty hard. You do have to run like a full-on exhaust deck to really get value out of Howl from Beyond, because as a 3-cost card, it's very hard to justify running. 16 damage to all enemies is not bad, but it's just really hard to justify, and you lose a lot of tempo typically, but if you're actually paying energy for it. Stomp, on the other hand, that is a new card that does the opposite. So it's 12 AoE damage to all enemies, but it costs 1 less for each attack played this turn. So if you're playing low-cost decks, got a lot of strikes, you're making a lot of attacks per turn, this card can basically be free to play. And it's really easy to kind of fit in Stomp if you need to play, right? Like if you play 2 strikes, then this gets reduced to 1 cost, and you can use your 3rd energy to play Stomp. So I really enjoy this card. It's very flexible. Battle Trance, functionally the same as it was before. Upgrading it increases the amount you draw cards you can draw. Having 1 Battle Trance is almost like staple for every deck. There's no reason not to have a Battle Trance in like every single deck, I would think. At least 1. Not having more than 1 is troll, but having 1 is really, really good. Demonic Shield, this is a brand new card that is co-op specific, and it's literally my favorite card, I think. One of my favorite cards for the Ironclad. Sorry, Hellraiser is my favorite, but this is my second favorite card because it makes you be the party's shield, the tank. You take 1 damage, and then you give another player your block. You still get to keep your block, and you just get to add on your block to your ally. So you can essentially just be the shield. I am your shield for anyone in your party. It's super fucking awesome. It just feels really great that you're able to help another ally take no damage from a big attack. It's super cool. Perfect for the Ironclad's playstyle of being like the tanky bruiser character. Rage is functionally the same as it was before. Upgrading it, increased amount of block. Burning Pack is good for exhaust synergy. If you can play a deck that's like getting a lot of energy from something like a purge or whatever it's called, what is it called, pyre, then it is worth running. Otherwise, I would just say to wait for a battle trance rather than running burning pack. Upgrading it does increase the draw from 2 to 3, so it is still a pretty good card. Dominate, this is going to, again, synergize with vulnerability on enemies. If you can get a large number of vulnerability on the enemy and then you play a Dominate, you will get a massive amount of strength. If you upgrade it, it loses the exhaust tag, which may be good or bad, you know, depends. This might clog up your deck if you're not able to consistently get a lot of vulnerable on the enemy, and it might just be better to have this exhaust. Evil Eye, this synergizes with exhaust synergy. So if you exhausted a card, it is going to give you another 8 block, and it gives you 8 block base. If you upgrade it, it becomes 11. So this gives 22 block as a 1-cost card. That's crazy value. Crazy good value. Really good for exhaust decks. Or even if you have a little bit of exhaust synergy, this could be a really good card. Forgotten Ritual, this is basically like the Bloodletting, but for exhaust decks. So this gives 3 energy if you exhausted a card, and if you upgrade it, gives 4 energy. Very, very powerful for exhaust decks to be able to pop off. And because corruption is now much harder to get, this is kind of the go-to in terms of like having really high tempo, big swing turns using your exhaust cards. So Forgotten Ritual, really good for that. Infernal Blade is going to make it so that you can add a random attack to your hand. This is functionally the same as it was before. It's 0 cost if you upgrade it, but it's an RNG card, so it's really, it can't be S tier, you know, it can never be actually good because it's dependent on luck. Second Wind is going to exhaust all non-attack cards in your hand. You gain 5 block for each card exhausted. It synergizes very well with exhaust decks, gives you a high tempo amount of block, especially if you upgrade it. Taunt is a new card that gives vulnerable. It's only 1 if it's unupgraded, but if you upgrade it, it is going to be 2 vulnerable and 8 blocks. So honestly, if you can get this upgraded, it is really, really solid. This is a great way to apply vulnerable, especially off turn when you don't want to be attacking and you still want the enemy to remain vulnerable. If it has 2 vuln, even if you don't attack this turn, they'll still be vulnerable next turn. So super good. Expect the Fight. Honestly, this is also a really good card. It is a very like high tempo card for aggressive attack decks, strike decks specifically. It is 2 energy. You gain an energy for each attack in your hand, and if you upgrade it, it only costs 1, which means that as long as you have more than 1 attack in your hand, you're gonna get bonus energy from this card. I like Bloodletting better, to be honest, but this is still not bad for a card. Flame Barrier, functionally the same. Flame Barrier is, I feel like, a lot better in Slay the Spire 2 because a lot of enemies have like crazy multi-attack, like 5, 6, 7 times multi-attacks, and so this can deal a ton of damage just by itself. Drum of Battle is a new power card. It's going to let you draw 2 cards, 3 if you upgrade it, and at the start of your turn, it's going to exhaust top card of your deck. So if you have like the Howl, then this is going to be quite powerful. Good exhaust synergy, but if you don't have exhaust synergy, you have to be very careful about this card because even though it gives draw for no cost, it can thin out your deck. Feel No Pain is going to be, I don't know, this is a card. This is a previous card. So whenever card's exhausted, you gain 4 block. Functionally the same as it was before. Still great for an exhaust deck. Inferno, we already talked about this. If you when you use this card, at the start of your turn, you lose 1 HP. And then whenever you lose HP, so this works with any card that bleeds you of HP, then you deal 9 damage to all enemies. Super good with any sort of bleed deck. Inflame, functionally the same. 2 strength for 1 cost. 3 strength if you upgrade it. Not bad. Juggling is going to be a new card, and this is going to add a copy of specifically the 3rd attack that you play each turn. So if you don't play 3 attacks every turn, or if you don't play a 3rd attack on a turn, you're not going to get a bonus card out of Juggling. So this incentivizes strike build decks. This incentivizes playing with a lot of cheap attacks, and if you do have the upgrade, it is in it. Not bad for a card, but honestly not crazy either. We have Rupture, which whenever you lose HP on your turn, you gain 1 strength. So that synergizes very well with bleed decks. It is 2 strength if you upgrade it. And you can actually get quite a bit of strength if you are dealing damage to yourself frequently. This is going to give us 4 plating. Plating gives us an amount of block equal to the plating stacks that we have. And it is reduced by 1 every turn. And so this is going to give you 4 block the turn you play it, and then 3 block, and then 2 block, and then 1 block which would be for, you know, a total of like 10 block. And then if we upgrade this, it's going to give us 6 plating, which is going to give us a total of 21 block, if I'm mathing properly. So if you upgrade this, this can be a pretty decent card, especially for 1 cost. It's going to give us a lot of armor over the course of a fight, but honestly, it is a lot more situational than it was before. Really up to you if you want to take, but it's not bad if you can take this as an upgraded pick. Vicious is going to be a new card. This is a power that makes us, whenever we apply vulnerable, we can draw 1 card unupgraded and 2 cards if we upgrade it. So again, really with that stacking synergy of applying vulnerable, we can then draw cards. Every time we apply vulnerable, we're going to be able to draw cards. A lot of the vulnerable cards are 1 cost or 2 costs, and so being able to cycle and draw extra cards can be quite potent, especially if you have something like a Pyre giving you extra energy in the deck. This synergizes quite well with the vulnerable decks. The next card we're going to cover is Stampede. This is a brand new power card. I really like this card. It's very interesting. It is a 2 cost, 1 cost if you upgrade it. Power card that at the end of your turn, a random attack is played against a random enemy. So it has the word random in it, which automatically makes it not S tier. It is maybe A tier, maybe something in B tier at best. But I really love this card because even though it plays a random attack, if you only have 1 attack in your hand, that's no longer a random attack. It will only play the one attack that you have in your hand. And so you can get this. If you have just a bludgeon in your hand, you get to play that bludgeon for free. And this happens at the end of your turn. So you can apply Vuln, you can apply your setup strike, and it's still going to proc on the Stampede. It can be a very nice card to have for that extra tempo. And if you upgrade, it's only 1 cost, so it's really not that expensive to have to be able to just play an attack that's left over in your hand that you didn't even have the energy to play. So it can be really strong over the course of a run, and I actually quite like this card a lot. I'm very fond of it, but yeah, it's not super 100% reliable, but it's certainly not bad. I think it's a pretty decent card. Pack's End is an exhaust synergy card. It does 17 damage to all enemies and 23 if you upgrade it, which is a hefty amount of damage, especially for 0 cost, but you can only play this when you have 3 or more cards in your exhaust pile. So this only functions for exhaust decks. Outside of an exhaust deck, this card is pretty much useless. It literally cannot be played. So, I mean, there's that situational part of it. It's very niche, but it is powerful when you get to pull it off. This is basically like the exhaust immolate. Conflagration is a new attack that deals 8 damage to all enemies and 2 additional damage for each other attack you played. So again, strike deck synergy, really nice to have. It does AoE damage, which is also very important in Slay the Spire 2. So it's not a bad attack card to play. I wouldn't say it's particularly powerful. When you upgrade this, it does get to do more damage, and the scaling is a little bit better. But I feel like the scaling, it could have been 4 more damage, and it still would have been, it wouldn't have been a broken card, Conflagration. So it's a good card. Speed. This is a classic. If you can get this early in a run, I mean, this can massively increase your max HP if you're playing carefully and smart. However, it's still good as just a 1-cost card that does a decent chunk of damage. But the fact that it gets to give you extra 4 max HP is also extremely powerful as well. So it's a nice card to have. Thrash, brand new attack card. This deals 4 damage twice, and it exhausts a random attack in your hand and adds that damage, that card's damage, to this card. Now, I'll be honest, I feel like I'm either getting something wrong or misinterpreting this card, but it doesn't feel like it adds the flat amount of damage that's listed on the card. Like, if it exhausts a bludgeon, I don't feel like it adds 33 damage and then does 37 damage twice to the enemy. Because I played Thrash, I've had it proc off of powerful cards, and it doesn't seem to be doing as much damage as it's supposed to. Let me know in the comments if it's working great for you and if you use this card a lot, because personally I just don't see the mathing up for me, and as a result of that, I don't really take this card that much. But let me know if I'm the crazy one. I could be the crazy one. Fiend Fire is a classic card. This is perfect for exhaust decks. Exhaust your hand, deal 7 damage for each card. So if you have a lot of draw power, you can get a full hand and you play a Fiend Fire, this becomes 10 damage per card. It is absolutely massive. That's 15 damage if the enemy's vuln. Like, this thing can really, really fuck up an enemy if you are willing to burn your entire hand. And if you have Dark Embrace, it's not even that bad to play. Tear Asunder, this deals 5 damage. It hits an additional time for each time you lost HP this combat. And that goes up to 7 damage if you upgrade it. If you enchant this card and then are able to deal like 10 damage, this can be essentially an insane card. This can scale based upon the amount of times you've been hit. If an enemy is multi-attacking, that is going to further increase the scaling. There is a lot of potential for Asunder to deal a ton of damage, but it takes a lot of setup. In fact, it takes so much setup. It works with bleed decks very well because those do count as times you were hit. But I think this is just such a situational card that it's hard to justify running in most decks, if any. Mangle is a brand new card. This one's actually pretty decent, a lot less situational. It is going to deal 20 damage and the enemy loses 15 strength. So most of the time, enemies are just going to hit hard. They're going to hit for large amounts, especially if they're hitting for multiple hits. It's not going to be as much, and the 15 strength could make it so that they deal no damage whatsoever. But even if it's not, this could be, 20 damage for 15 block as a 3 cost is not that bad. Unupgraded, this is honestly kind of not a value card. It's not tempo enough, but upgraded, I think it's all right. Brand, this is going to be a card. You lose 1 HP, exhaust 1 card, gain 1 strength. Very simple, very straightforward. If you upgrade it, it's 2 strength. I wish it was, maybe you can exhaust 2 cards, or maybe you can draw a card. I guess that'd be too similar to Offspring, but Brand, very situational. It works with bleeding and exhaust decks, and outside of that, I would not be taking this. Cascade. Cascade is a card that can basically define a playstyle where you can just spam energy, and then if you have like 6 or 7 energy, you can play Cascade, and all of a sudden your deck that's filled with a bunch of really expensive, powerful cards is just going to be playing itself and absolutely decimating your foes. So it's kind of a fun card. It's very niche, but if you can get Cascade to work, this is a build defining card, I would say, by itself. I've built decks around Cascade and they've worked quite well, even in like Ascension 5. So I enjoy this card a lot, but yeah, it's very niche. Offering, this is going to be lose 6 HP, gain 2 energy, draw 3 cards. This is a classic. It's the same as before. Draw 5 cards if you upgrade this bitch. It is really fucking good. Super high tempo. Yes, 6 HP costs a lot, but hey, your Burning Blood gives you back 6 HP at the end of your combat. So if you're able to end a fight quick, this card, I mean, it's all about big swing turns. Drawing 5 cards is huge for Fiendfire. It's huge for Cascade. It's huge, well, not Cascade. It's huge for other cards that rely on draw. It's huge for Hellraiser, actually. Super fucking huge for Hellraiser decks. Yeah, Offering is just really, really nice as a card. Primal Force is a brand new skill. This one lets you transform all attacks in your hands into a Giant Rock. And if you upgrade it, it is a Giant Rock Plus. So Giant Rock by itself, 16 damage. Giant Rock Plus, 20 damage. That is pretty good. 1 cost for 20 damage, which then becomes 30 damage if the enemy is vuln. I mean, this card, it can be build defining. I have built decks around Primal Force. I did a co-op run recently where I built my deck around Primal Force. We're just swapping out all of our low-cost, shitty-ass cards for Giant Rocks and then pummeling our opponent into oblivion like a primate, and it is a lot of fun. It can be quite hard to use because you got to get luck. You have to have a ton of attacks in your hand when you play Primal Force. So you need a lot of draw. If you don't have a lot of draw, this card can be straight up useless. It can give you like just 1 Giant Rock, which really isn't that great. But I think it's overall a very decent card, and I'm super happy to get this early. It's OP as fuck if you get this early. Colossus is our next card. Gain 5 block, you receive 50% less damage from vulnerable enemies. So again, lot of vulnerable synergy. This is going to give us 8 block if we upgrade it, which pretty damn nice. Not too shabby. 50% less damage from vulnerable enemies. That is a lot less damage. You can run a vulnerable deck and you're not going to have to be super reliant on getting high block if you have Colossus, because this is going to mitigate a shit ton of damage for you if the enemy is vuln. So I do like this card. It does work very well with vulnerable decks. 1-2 punch is basically double tap. This turn, your next attack is played in extra time, and if you upgrade it, your next 2 attacks are played in extra time. So it's very potent. If you play with a Pommel Strike, you get to draw 4 cards. If you play with a Bash, you get to inflict a ton of vulnerable. If you play it with, Giant Rocks, you just deal a shit ton of damage. So I really like 1-2 punch. This is almost always a pick for me because it's more damage, right? It's just more damage, more value. It's only 1 cost. Once you upgrade it, it's super high value, even if you're playing just 1-cost cards off of it. So yeah, this is a really, really great card. Stoke, exhaust your hand, draw a card for each exhausted card. It's 0 cost if you upgrade it, so it is really good with exhaust decks, but it's only good for exhaust decks. If you could run this kind of as like a gambling potion where you're just going to get rid of the cards that you have that are shit, and then you just want to draw more cards. But honestly, I would only use this in exhaust decks. Impervious, the tried and true classic, works great with Body Slam, and is just a super good card to keep you alive. Honestly, if I ever see an Impervious, I usually pick just one up for damage mitigation purposes. It's almost always good, I would say. So, I mean, this is like an easy A tier card. I like it a lot. Aggression, brand new card. At the start of your turn, put a random attack from your discard pile into your hand and upgrade it. And if you upgrade this, then it becomes in it. So it is very cool to, if you want to play like a low cost, high attack deck, then this is going to be the one for you. Again, works really great for Hellraiser decks because you're going to be playing the strike cards automatically. So being able to get one from discard pile so that you can play it manually and use your energy up, that is very nice. A little bit situational, yes, but I think this is actually a pretty good card for card generation. Then we have Crimson Mantle. At the start of your turn, lose 1 HP and gain 8 block. Upgraded, it becomes 10 block. This card's amazing. It is fucking this. It's metallicized if metallicized was good. Like 10 block every turn is crazy. And the fact that it synergizes with blood deck, like the lose 1 HP is honestly a good thing. Yes, it can hurt you over the course of a long fight, but the fact that it actually helps to proc bloodletting is, in my opinion, actually a really good thing. And I really, really love Crimson Mantle. This is, if I see this card early, especially on, I'll take it, and it'll just give me all the block I need for the run, at least early on. Even in like Act 2, it's still really, really substantial. In Act 3, it's not bad. Cruelty. This is a brand new power, and this is why vulnerable decks are a thing now. With Cruelty, you will deal 25% damage, more damage to vulnerable enemies. And if you upgrade it, it's 50% more damage. If you have an enemy that's vulnerable, they will be taking 200% damage, which means full on 2 times damage. It's outrageous. It is outlandish. Once you have Cruelty, then enemies that are vulnerable are really going to start feeling the pain from your attacks. Even if your attacks don't do that much damage baseline. Like, it's really awesome, this card. So love this card for vulnerable decks. But yeah, it has to be, you have to have at least a few cards and a consistent way to inflict vulnerable. Otherwise, it's not worth taking. Tank. This is a brand new card that is co-op specific. And it is the ultimate card for being the party's tank. You take double damage from your enemies, but your allies take half. So you're taking basically half of the party's damage so that they don't have to worry as much. They don't have to block as much. But I mean, this is like, unless you are building a block deck, this can just get you killed, which is hilarious. It is really funny. But yeah, love it. It fits the vibe of Ironclad perfectly. I wish there was more co-op cards. I really wish there was more co-op cards because I love these. The 2 cards that they already give to the Ironclad, it fits a theme of being a tank. It'd be cool if there was one that's like more of like a damage dealer for the party, or you're able to buff your allies with strength with like a war cry. That would be nice, but hey, I'm not complaining. Really awesome card. Very situational though, however. Dark Embrace. We've already talked about this card, but this is the main card for exhaust decks. This makes it so that all of those cards that are being exhausted are allowing you to cycle your deck. You get to draw a card every time you exhaust a card. It can be very powerful, but you do need other sorts of card generation, because once you take a Dark Embrace, once you're exhausting constantly, you will actually thin your deck to nothingness if you don't have card generation of any sort. So keep that in mind. Hellraiser. This is the de facto new card, my favorite card. It is a 2-cost power, 1 cost if you upgrade it. Whenever you draw a card containing strike, it is played against a random enemy. So yes, it is played against a random enemy, which kind of sucks. But the tempo you get from automatically being able to play any card with strike in it is fucking crazy. The amount of runs, half of my Ascension runs are just me getting Hellraiser, me building around Hellraiser, and me obliterating the opponent with, you need to have a lot of draw, and you need to have a lot of strike cards. But then Hellraiser goes crazy hard. And it's, for the Ironclad, it's really not hard for you to get draw cards, and it's really not hard for you to get strike cards. So This card is very easy to build around, a lot more so than most other rare cards that are build defining. At least in my opinion, you know, maybe I'm crazy, maybe I'm too biased, but man, I adore Hellraiser. It is just such a high tempo card that once you get it, it just starts pounding away at the enemy HP until there's just nothing left. If you have pommel strikes, automatically playing those is going to trigger draw to play even more of your strike cards. If you have some of the big hitting ones, like the, what is it called? Perfected Strike, then you're going to be dealing tons of damage, especially if the enemy's vulnerable. Tons and tons of damage automatically as you're drawing these cards. So really, really cool card to have. I was really surprised by this card when it got added because it's so high tempo compared to a lot of the other cards in the Ironclad's deck. And man, I just fucking adore this thing. Juggernaut, same card. Whenever you gain block, deal 5 damage to the enemy, 7 if it's upgraded. It's alright. I don't think it scales well. I think block decks are viable, and they don't even need Juggernaut to be viable. Like, Body Slam is just such a goated card. You don't really need Juggernaut for damage, but it's not bad, you know? I wish upgrading it would decrease the cost rather than increase the damage, really, because two energy is way too much tempo loss to play. Pyre, gain an energy at the start of each turn. If you upgrade it, it's 2 energy at the start of each turn. If you get this card early on in a run and are able to build a high energy cost deck with Pyre, like, this is pretty much the only way to get constant energy generation every turn with no downside other than the 2 energy that you're spending the first turn you play this, which isn't even that much. If you have a Bloodletting, it's free basically. So Pyre actually, I think, is a really powerful card to ramp up your deck very quickly. You know, as soon as you play this, the next turn you're getting 5 energy instead of 3. Like, that's already a huge difference that is going to impact a run and is super good on boss fights. Really good. I actually like this card a lot. Unmovable is where the block decks start to go crazy. So this doubles the amount of block you get from the first card you play every turn. If you play this with an Impervious that's upgraded, you get 80 block off of that card, like 80 block immediately. If you have Barricade, then guess what? That block's not going to be removed, so even afterwards you still have a shit ton of block. But regardless, you know, Unmovable alongside Body Slam is how you can deal crazy damage off of block. It is very fun to have. If you have a Vambrace, actually, and you play it with Unmovable, if you play a fucking upgraded Impervious with Vambrace and Unmovable, you're going to get 160 block from 2 energy from 1 card. Like, what the fuck, man? Crazy cool. Crazy good with Body Slam. And that ties into the next card, Barricade, which is a 3-cost card. Block's not removed from your turn. If you upgrade it, it's only 2 energy. 2 energy is still a lot. It's going to slow you down. It does have to be a slow ramp if you're going to be building around Barricade. Unmovable is not as bad just because it's 1 cost if you upgrade it. 2 costs is still kind of expensive, especially because energy generation is harder to get in Slay the Spire 2. There's no energy relics, right? You have to get it through either your blessings or through bloodletting or through Pyre or through, like, Ironclad actually has good energy generation methods, so it's not as bad, but still, regardless, I think it's a little bit harder than it was before. So yeah, this is very situational, but it can be super good. Can be build defining. Demon Form, another card that could also be build defining. This is all about ramping strength. So at the start of your turn, you gain 2 strength, 3 strength if you upgrade it, but it costs 3 no matter what. So if you have this with Pyre, that's great, but again, it's going to be very slow to build around these, to ramp up with this. And there's no Limitless in Slay the Spire 2, if you guys notice. Because there's no Limitless, this card, honestly, goes down in my list. It just is so much less useful because you can't just take a Limitless, have that scaling strength, and then double it repeatedly to get insane amounts of strength to one-shot enemies. This, you know, 3 strength per turn is just way too slow. In Act 3, when enemies have like 500 fucking plus health, like, this is just not cutting it, you know? It's really not cutting it. It's not bad, and it can be good, but is this card by any means decent? It's I don't know. It's honestly hard to say so nowadays. It's a lot of tempo loss to play a Demon Form. And then next up, last but not least, we have our 2 cards here. This one's unknown, but I'll show it on screen. It's basically an upgraded version of Bash that does 20 damage and has 5 Vuln. And then this is Corruption, which is the same as it was before. Skills now cost 0, and whenever you play them, they are exhausted. These you could only get from an ancient, a certain merchant ancient that you'll find in Act 2 once you unlock it by playing this game enough. And so because these cards are super hard, like you can only get them from one type of ancient, they're very niche. I wouldn't even consider like Corruption to be a card that you can build around now. If you run into it, like sure, build around it, but it's a lot less consistent. You will not be having runs with Corruption all that often because, you know, by the time you get to it, you're in Act 2. So you have better started building an exhaust deck before you have gotten to Act 2. And then once you do, you can really start to push it to the limit with Corruption. The other card, it is pretty strong. That one, it is worth running, and it is quite powerful. It's just basically a way better version of Bash. So yeah, definitely take that if you want, if you got no other choices. But the Merchant has some really interesting options to offer, and maybe I'll make a guide on Ancients in the future. But yeah, that's going to be it for all of the cards for the Ironclad. We went through the entire fucking list. It took me, you know, maybe like 45 minutes to do. Hopefully you guys haven't been bored out of your minds. If you found that information helpful, that is great. Guess what? I'm also going to put a little tier list in so that when you're drafting, you can have a quick reference on what cards are going to be the best to take, or at least with the cards that I think I would highly recommend are going to be the best to take based on their consistency of how useful they are. All right, so let's go over the tier list for the Ironclad cards. I've broken them up into rare, uncommon, and common. That way it will be significantly easier for you guys to kind of parse out the information and actually use these tier lists for your own runs. If you want to know, at least this is based upon my own experience, like what cards you should keep an eye out for and what cards you should probably try to avoid unless you specifically build around them, then these tier lists are going to be the exact resource for you. I've made it up to Ascension 8. I plan on making it to the max Ascension rank, whatever that is. Hopefully it's 20 in Slay the Spire 2. And along the way, this tier list may change, but I think at the moment it's pretty freaking solid. So should be a good resource for you guys. If you're someone new, then this is meant to help you out in building your deck. And if you're someone who is experienced and knows what they're doing, then get in the comments and we can discuss what our favorite cards or what we think is the most powerful cards or least powerful cards. Now, I've broken up the tiers, not into ranks, but into titles. Broken is going to qualify only cards that can build infinity decks, and cards that are good that can build infinity decks too. So by themselves, they're going to be solid, but if you add some extra effort, you can also turn them into potential infinity decks. Previously, the Ironclad could use Dropkick to make infinity decks because that card can draw, it can give you energy, and it can deal damage. So if you repeatedly play Dropkicks because you thinned your deck out enough, then you could just deal infinite damage. There are cards similar to that in this game. However, there is no more Dropkick. So the deck builds are different for the infinity decks, which is awesome. I've theory crafted a few. That's broken category. Consistently powerful category is going to be for cards that are almost always good. Does not matter what cards you've taken. Doesn't matter what type of deck you're building. Chances are these decks can fill a niche for your current deck that are going to help you out. And then the niche OP / pretty good cards are cards that you do have to build around, but if you do, they're fucking broken, or they're really, really, really good, or they're build defining in some sort of way, or they're cards that are just very solid, but not OP. Then we have the okay, and niche category. These are going to be for cards that do require a little bit of elbow grease to make work, but they're plenty good if you do, or they're just all right if you don't. And then the bad and too niche category are cards that require a lot of setup. They only function in one type of setup, and even then they might be too slow or too specific, where I genuinely find myself avoiding these cards quite often. So that's the categories. Let's break it down. We are going to start off with the commons, of course. There's no broken cards in the commons. I do not think any of these cards can be used specifically by themselves for infinity decks. However, as you can see here, they're pretty well rounded. I'm actually pleasantly surprised by the commons. The quality of commons in the Ironclad, or for the Ironclad in Slay the Spire 2, has gone up massively compared to Slay the Spire 1. There are a lot of bad cards, like Heavy Blade and Clash in Slay the Spire 1 that I just fucking hate and I avoid like the plague. But in Slay the Spire 2, there really aren't any cards, I would say, that are downright like awful that I would never play. But there are a few cards, primarily at the bottom here, Cinder and Havoc, that I just don't find myself ever wanting to take or needing. Now, I do not play exhaust decks that much. Exhaust decks are, in general, much harder to play, especially because corruption is so much harder to obtain now. But there are some relics that do synergize with exhaust decks that make them a lot better, and there definitely is reason to play exhaust decks. But if you don't play an exhaust deck, like, these cards are literally useless, in my opinion. Cinder, 22 damage for 2 energy, just it doesn't really cut it for me. You could take a Perfected Strike and probably get around 22 damage, but you have the potential to increase that, and then Perfected Strike synergizes with strike decks, which are now good. So honestly, these 2 cards I would avoid. At the consistently powerful category, we have Bloodletting, Pommel Strike, and Shrug It Off. When I'm drafting, especially in the early game, I'm looking for these 3 cards. I'm just praying for these 3 cards. The second I see them, I take them. Does not matter what I'm building in my deck. Chances are I will take at least one of each of these. Bloodletting, great tempo, especially in the early game, but it does scale for the late game because it'll let you pop off with crazy combos. A Bloodletting plus a Whirlwind really is like just a busted AoE to survive all of the damn mob fights in the beginning of the game that the Ironclad really, really struggles with. And then, of course, later on, you can use Bloodletting to get you that extra tempo wherever you need it, or to pop off with really long combos. And just a fantastic card. Pommel Strike, this is a card that is, I think, can be used in an Infinity deck with Hellraiser, and we'll talk about that when we go to the rare section. But this card does damage and draws us lots of cards, so it's just super good for card generation and synergizes very well with strike decks. Shrug It Off, same thing, just a very solid card that is going to give us the block we need to survive hits, especially in the early game, and then it also cycles itself. So even if we get a bunch of block cards because we have too many block cards, at least Shrug It Off can try to cycle to get you an attack or get you something else, even if the block is going to be useful. In the niche OP category is going to be the vast majority of the rest of the cards. Armaments, Bash, Bloodwall. We've got Body Slam, Breakthrough, Headbutt, Molten Fist, and True Grit. Some of these, like Body Slam, are downright broken, but you have to build around them, right? You have to have a block deck, and then Body Slam is actually broken. But if you don't have a block deck, then Body Slam's kind of not very useful. It's all right. It actually can get pretty good use, right? Like 20 damage off a Bloodwall is certainly not bad, especially at 0 cost. But it's not going to go crazy hard until you build around it. And in the okay niche pile, we have Anger, Iron Wave, Perfected Strike, Setup Strike, Sword Boomerang, Thunderclap, Tremble, Twin Strikes. I think these are pretty self-explanatory. These can actually become quite powerful, especially with enchants, right? Like Sword Boomerang with an enchant that gives it +3 damage, and then you upgrade it, and then you have Strength. Like, I mean, that can pop off pretty hard, but, honestly, these cards take a lot more setup than the ones in the previous category. So that's the common cards. For the uncommon cards, we have in the broken category Unrelenting. Now, this card is a very solid card. I would put it between consistently powerful and niche OP pretty good in terms of like the general placement of it. I do take it quite often, especially because it lets you play Bash for free. It lets you play Bludgeon for free. This card by itself can give you a lot of value. But if you have multiple Unrelentings in your deck, you can use them to just keep playing Unrelenting. So if you get an enchant to put draw onto Unrelenting so that every time you play it, you draw more, and then you can keep playing it again and again and again, I genuinely think that there's the potential for an infinity combo with Unrelenting that will absolutely break the game. Have I been able to pull it off yet? No, but I'm definitely working on it. If I manage to do it, there will be a video on that, so look forward to that. Consistently powerful category, we got Battle Trance, Demonic Shield, Taunt, and Whirlwind. These are cards that I'm always keeping out for. Keep in mind, Demonic Whirlwind, this is co-op only. You will not find this card in single player. If you're missing a card in your collection, it's probably because you haven't played co-op yet. Battle Trance, really good. Don't ever have more than one Battle Trance, because getting a Battle Trance off a Battle Trance is literally useless. So do keep in mind, you could have, if you have too much draw, then you don't need a Battle Trance, but Battle Trance is just such a great draw card, especially when you don't have draw, that this can really be very useful. And especially with Hellraiser and other sorts of decks where you do need draw, this is, 4 cards for 0 costs. It's hard to beat. Now, Taunt, always good. Very simple, very straightforward. Whirlwind, you need AoE to survive, especially in the Ascension ranks. You really need AoE cards. Whirlwind is one of the best AoE cards because it can scale with your energy bar. So this can get stronger and stronger over time. And yeah, it can become a really devastating card. And then in our niche OP pretty good category, we've got Burning Pack, Dismantle, Evil Eye, Expect a Fight, Hemokinesis, Inferno, Juggling, Pillage, Rage, Second Wind, Stampede, Stomp, and Vicious. Stampede is a card that I adore. I really, really, really enjoy this card. Using it with high cost cards in your deck and just having this thing pop off, playing them for free, it really is very nice. But does take some building around, and a lot of these cards take building around, otherwise they're not that strong, or they're not at least able to be used to their full potential. And in the okay niche category, we kind of are in that same state where they need to be built around to have their potential unlocked, and even then, you know, they're not necessarily the greatest cards. Bludgeon, I like that card. I think it's so much better than it was in Slay the Spire 1 because we have Stampede, we have ways that we can play this thing for basically for free, and it does do a good bit of damage, but even 42 damage is not really good enough scaling once you get to Act 3, right? You need other ways to ramp this up to really make this something that's going to stand out and that's going to be consistently good. So these cards fall into the okay niche category because of that. Like Flame Barrier, way better in this game than it was in the previous. You know, there's definitely a few cards that I think are significantly better or they've been revamped, such as Inferno, so that they're way better than they were in the previous game. And I'm very happy about those changes. And then, of course, in the bad to niche category, we have Fight Me, we have Grapple, Infernal Blade, Inflame, and Rampage. These cards are just... they just don't give you enough. I've tried to build around Rampage. I've tried to do a Rampage deck. It just doesn't work. It does not scale. You have to really, really, really add on something extra. Maybe I'm just not building it properly. If you guys have found a way to make the Rampage deck work, please let me know, because I genuinely am convinced that this card is just fucking useless. Inflame, 3 strength, not enough scaling, especially because there's no more limitless. Infernal Blade, RNG dependent. You know, these cards I would typically avoid taking. I mean, if you want to have fun, Infernal Blade is a very fun card. Is it a good card? Not really. But is it a fun card? Abso-fucking-lutely yes. So those are our picks for the rare cards. And then let's go over, uncommon cards. And these are our picks for the rare cards. So in the broken category for the rares, we have Hellraiser. Hellraiser is just by itself, like, build defining, right? You can build a bunch of strikes, especially pommel strikes and perfected strikes in your deck, and then this is going to just let you play them for free, earning you a million tempo so that you can decimate your opponents in just like a couple turns. Now, also, because you can automatically play pommel strikes, which we look back, pommel strike deals 10 damage and it draws 2 cards, and this is playing them without expending any energy whatsoever. Does not expend any energy when you use Hellraiser. Because we can do that, there is the potential for an infinity combo, especially if you put an enchant for extra draw on your pommel strikes. You could have other cards in the mix, but if your pommel strike draws 5 cards, and one of those cards is another pommel strike drawing 5 cards into another one, you know what I mean? It could be an infinite loop. And for that reason, I think Hellraiser goes into the broken category. Even if it wasn't in the broken category, I would put it either in consistently powerful or niche OP. Probably more so towards niche OP because you do need to build around it, but it's one of my favorite cards because it has so much potential. In the consistently powerful category, we have Break, which is the other Ancients card that I didn't talk about, or maybe I talked about it, but just very briefly. Deals 25 damage and applies 7 vulnerable. This is super good for vulnerable decks. And even if you don't have a vulnerable deck, I mean, it's just really good. It's just a way better version of a bash. Right, Conflagration, Crimson Mantle, Cruelty, Impervious, 1-2 Punch, Unmovable. These are all solid rare cards. If you take them, there's a good chance that even if you're not building around them, they're going to give you a lot of value for your deck, and you're going to be able to use them to pretty decent effect. For our niche OP pretty good category, we've got Aggression, Cascade, Colossus, Corruption, Dark Embrace, Feed, Fiendfire, Primal Force, and Pyre. Most of these cards are in the situation where you need to build around them, you need to plan, and then they can become extremely, extremely good. We've got a lot of exhaust synergy here, right? We got Corruption, we've got Dark Embrace. These go together very nicely. Fiendfire 2 works great for the exhaust decks. For exhaust decks, I also like to run aggression, as this is going to be a form of card generation, pretty reliable card generation too. The only other card that can generate other cards, is going to be juggling. This will add copies of the third attack, specifically the third attack, so it's way more niche than aggression. But yeah, because this actually generates those cards, then it is going to be very helpful for exhaust decks where we're going to be burning through a ton of cards. So I do think that can fall into the niche OP. Cascade, obviously, I've talked about it. You can build around that. Pyre, almost always good, honestly. Pyre could kind of be in the consistently powerful category because it is really solid, and energy generation is just so much harder to get. And then in our OK niche category, we got Barricade, Brand, Mangle, Stoke, Tank. Tank is, by the way, pure co-op card. You will not see this in single player. Tear Asunder, Thrash. These cards are good, but they are good only in certain situations, and a lot of the times are not as good if you're playing them outside those situations. Barricade, of course, it could be in the niche OP category because, yeah, you can do some crazy shit with Barricade, and especially in a movable and maybe a Vambrace with that. But, you know, in general, I would say this card is kind of mid as fuck. Bad and two niche category, unfortunately, Demon Form, Juggernaut, and Pax N just fall into this category for me. Exhaust decks can make great use of Pax N, but literally outside of an exhaust deck, this card is like downright useless. There are uses for Dark Embrace and Fiendfire. Dark Embrace, even if we're not running an exhaust deck, we do have the potential of running it alongside Drum of Battle, and then we can get constant draw every single turn, and that can be quite potent. Same with Fiendfire, right? Like, even if we're not building an exhaust deck, if we can have a ton of draw and we have like 10 cards in our hands, then Fiendfire can do a ton of damage, regardless of whether or not we're building around exhaust. Pact Ends only works if you're building around an exhaust deck. You have to have 3 or more cards in the exhaust pile. If you don't, you cannot play this card. If you draw this card early, it is useless, and that kind of pisses me off. So Pact End I barely use. Juggernaut, it just doesn't feel like it gives me enough value. 7 damage per block for a 2-cost power is not a whole lot. Sure, there's definitely cases where you can build around Juggernaut and it can deal a lot of damage over the course of a battle, but, you know, same thing with Demon Form. The strength without the card Limitless from Slay the Spire 1, we just can't ramp up fast enough to really get a meaningful amount of strength to obliterate our foes. So these cards aren't, I wouldn't say they're useless, but you just really have to build and play around them. If you're going to get Demon Form, you have to ramp super slow. Kind of same with Juggernaut, honestly. And Pax End, you have to build exhaust. So for those reasons, they go at the bottom. They're not F tier. They're not super bad. But just keep in mind, they're nowhere near as consistent or as good as the other cards, at least in my opinion, from my runs. So that's going to break it down for our tier list there. That was hopefully a lot faster than the breakdown of every single card. But yeah, if you found this video helpful, if you found the information useful at all, please like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps out the channel, motivates me to make more content. I love Slay the Spire 2. I'm going to continue to make Slay the Spire 2. Even if like 3 people are the only ones watching this video, I will continue to make Slay the Spire content because I will be playing Slay the Spire 2 because I just love this fucking game. And I do love the Ironclad. I do really want to play the Regent a lot more as well. When I have the time for that, I'm going to probably pump a lot of time into the Regent and maybe even the Necrobinder as well. The new characters are super cool. But yeah, that'll be it for the video. I am going to work on probably some more Ironclad videos, maybe an Ironclad deck building video. I think that would be great to kind of show all the cards associated with each deck archetype. So that, and I'll also show you guys the relic synergies as well, because there's some really cool relic synergies that make the decks stand out a lot more, especially things like Strike Dummy for Strike decks, or the Sharon's Ashes, I think, for the exhaust decks. Those can actually have a big impact on the playstyle and make it scale better. So I'll make a video on that pretty soon. But yeah, look forward to more Slay the Spire content, and I will see all of you in the next video. Peace.